Hello and welcome. I'm watching a video of me working on page 6 of The Yellow Man. So this is continuing on from the sequence where Lorelei and Chick and Nikki are in the bar, the tavern, Tally Ho. And this sequence happens immediately afterwards. Or is it the next day? I'm not sure. I haven't decided. Anyway, in this sequence, Lorelei is now walking along the city streets, and I'm lightboxing in from my rough sketches a few of the panels. Mostly, though, these sketches are just the figures. Not too much of the background. I have a few little lines for the background, but the backgrounds I'm going to go in and do a little bit better later, right onto the Bristol board. The light boxing, I just went to that for to get the figures the way I wanted them to be. So, kind of a shot looking down on her, walking along the sidewalk. Trying to get some details, a trash can, some litter on the sidewalk, a parking meter, and some kind of truck is going to be there beside her. So I'll get in those details later. But right now, I'm more concerned with framing the figures. And so this is the second tier of the page. Actually, it would be the third. The top two tiers are going to be one big panel, which we might see better at some point here. So the second, so we switch shots for the next panel, and we're seeing her walking along from behind and slightly from below. So we're looking up and we're seeing some of the city buildings as she's kind of walking into the valley of the downtown district. Sort of like a valley of buildings. I really didn't get the perspective right here. I think she needs to be foreshortened a little bit more so that it looks like we're looking up at her, because we're seeing the tops of some of those buildings, but hoping that it won't be too noticeable. I can maybe get away with that. Again, just trying to throw down some lines for where I want the buildings, and then I'll go and try to do some detail work later. But the important thing is to get her figure. And these next few panels are sketches that I drew a while back, and I wasn't really sure. I had in mind a sequence, and I'm incorporating the sequence into this page. It just seemed like a good place for it. So she's walking along, and as she's walking along, she looks up, and she catches sight of something up above her on the roof of the buildings. And she's a comic book writer, and she writes these superhero stories, and so she's got sort of an imaginary world, an imaginary life going on in her mind all the time, in which she kind of imagines herself as one of these comic book characters, and sometimes we don't know if she's actually seeing them or if it's just part of her imagination. And here we get a look at what she thinks she sees. So a figure leaping across from one building to another, one rooftop to another. And we'll see from the top panel, which we've only caught a few glimpses of, that this figure that she's seeing is her as one of these superhero characters. So it's kind of like her imagination. Okay, so now I'm going to put in some of the background details, and I'm using some reference for buildings. And the city that she's in, it's I don't say where it is, but it's kind of it's kind of a Midwestern sort of mid-sized city. And in my imagination, I'm from Pittsburgh, so it kind of, in my mind, it sort of looks like Pittsburgh. So I'm using some photographs of some of the downtown buildings in Pittsburgh as a reference here to get the look of the kind of buildings that she's passing by. Trying to get all those lines to go off right in the right direction. This faking the perspective, doing it freehand. They're eyeballing it. Sometimes you get lines that are kind of wonky, and so lots of going back and erasing and fixing things. And I'm not so sure about this this panel, whether I think it works or not. I might have to go back and totally redo it, but for now, I'll keep it the way it is. So she's heading. What she's doing is she's on her way. She's going to go visit a comic book shop that she likes to frequent, and as she's walking along, she's sort of engaging in her fantasy, her imaginary life, little things that she's seeing in her mind. She sort of sees herself as these characters that she writes about. Yeah, as I'm looking at it now, I think I might have to redo that one. It just doesn't look right. I don't know. Maybe it will. I can't decide. After you put that much work into a background, it's kind of hard to let go of it. It could be, now that I look at it now, there's so much line work in the background that maybe it just won't register as nonsensical. Trying to get some of the details of the city streets. So fix that garbage can. And it's set in the story is set in no particular time period either. It's kind of, I like to think of it as sort of late Cold War era. So anywhere from the late 70s to the late 80s. So I don't want to use anything that looks too recent either. But still keeping it kind of vague. But the vehicles, I tend to like older looking vehicles anyway. I'm trying to find reference for a parking meter. I've been reading a book about John Tenniel, who was the illustrator who did the original illustrations for Alice in Wonderland, and apparently he didn't use reference, which I was blown away for, because many of his drawings are. Some of the details in his drawings, they're kind of hard to believe that he didn't use any reference for them. But he was, evidently there was artists of that time, some of them were, they were trained to just go from memory. And so they would, they pride themselves on having like a photographic memory. And it was sort of a mark of distinction that you didn't need to use reference, that you did everything just out of your head, out of your imagination. And I was kind of inspired by that and thinking about how much reference I use. Sometimes I feel like I can't draw anything if I don't have a photographic reference in front of me for something. So it made me feel like I should maybe rely a little bit more on memory. Anyway, the parking meter made me think of that. I wasn't able to find a really good reference for a parking meter, so I just left it from how I imagine it in my head. I think sometimes I get so caught up in these little details and I wonder, like, who even looks at that stuff. Okay. So the top panel. So I have her as she is in her imagination, in her superhero outfit, looking out over the roofs of the city. And I wanted to do something kind of like a Will Eisner type of splash page where the text is incorporated into the drawing somehow. And so the sequence is going to be called The Gutter. And The Gutter is the name of the comic book shop that she's walking to. So it's going to appear on this wall that she's sort of looking out from behind. And then some text will appear there as well in white. And now the truck. I had this vintage delivery truck in mind here, so I did find some reference for that. Vehicles I can't do out of my head. I really need reference for them. They're hard enough to do anyway. This little orange triangle I get a lot of use out of. This is my grandfather's drafting triangle. He gave me a lot of his old drafting tools when he retired, and I still have a number of them. I still have the horsehair brush that I use regularly, and a really nice compass set, and a couple triangles. I used to have a really nice point maker for a mechanical pencil. It was a heavy-duty one, like a serious piece of hardware. Not like the little plastic things that you find in stores nowadays. I don't know what happened to that. I lost so much stuff from moving so often, and I just had to get rid of things. Okay, so we're at the end now. All right, until next time.